The abhorrent, tragic death of Mr. George Floyd shocked the conscience of our profession. Let's start there. First, when I walked in the door, we were having some of those conversations of how do we improve as a profession? How do we better serve this community as the Rochester Police Department? And so this is really a continuation of those conversations, but we need to double down on that and come together in a meaningful fashion to come up with meaningful solutions in providing better public safety.
We used to say conversations were great, that's where it needs to start. We're way beyond that.
Yeah, I think it starts with, continuing some of the training that we've already started in understanding cultural sensitivity training, understanding that, getting back to the core basics of the Sir Robert Peel principles of the police of the public and the public are the police. And there really is that social contract with the public that we serve. And I can tell you, and I've said this several times before, hands down, the strength of this police department is the men and women that choose to put on this uniform and serve this community at the highest possible level. Do we always get it right? No, we make mistakes because we're human beings. And we need to learn from those mistakes, and we need to grow from those mistakes, and move on and continuously improve as an organization.
What about some of the things that have been said that have come out of protests and riots, inciting violence toward law enforcement officers?
Yeah, it's disappointing, obviously. Again, I think we strive. I'm very proud of this organization. I'm very proud of this community as well. And let's start there, perhaps. I think, much like the strength of the police department, the strength of this community is the people that make up this community. And I've seen a lot of good from this community. I've seen a lot of support, and I'm very thankful for that. And so my message to the community is thank you for the support that you've shown to the Rochester Police Department. My message to the protesters and the people holding rallies is I hear you and I understand, and we are going to continuously strive to do better and come forward with meaningful solutions on how we can provide better safety and public safety for the community.
Any of your officers ever show signs of racism where they would rather not respond to a certain call because maybe it's a black family or a Hispanic family or an Asian family?
No, our core values are that respect, integrity, compassion, and service. And we strive to achieve those core values on a daily basis. And we provide the highest level of policing service across the board to every member of this community, regardless of race.
If you hear a racial slur from any of your men or women, if you hear that there was something maybe inappropriate, maybe not, what is done?
Immediate action is taken, and that cannot be tolerated in the workplace or certainly in our profession or anywhere. And so immediate action is taken, and we look into it and we take appropriate disciplinary action if necessary.
Do you feel like some of the reforms that are happening, being talked about, or going to happen will tie your officers' hands down the road? Because sometimes they're violent criminals.
If you look at the threshold for use of force for state statute was it objectively reasonable? In essence, was the force used by officers objectively reasonable? There's a second element that progressive agencies are putting in there, and that is, was the force necessary? And we as an agency train with that additional element of was the force necessary in addition to was it objectively reasonable?
Break that down for me in an example.
So it's looking at the totality of the circumstances, what you have in front of you, right? Has the officer exhausted all de-escalation techniques? Have they
God, but you're right, Chief, you are right. Your men and women are right in the middle of something heated.
Yeah.
And happening like split second. And so those who defend police will say they did what they did because it was a split-second decision. Was it the right decision, wrong decision? That's going to be investigated after the fact. And then other people are going to say, well, you should have never done X, Y, Z. You had a split second to decide. You should have known better.
Well, that's why you have to view the incidents, all of them, through the lens of the officer responding or through what's in front of you, the totality of circumstances. None of us are clairvoyant, and it's really unfair to review the incident kind of hindsight 20/20, right? And that's what we try not to do. Again, learning from everything that we do. But you know, another misnomer out there, you know, and I've had people in the last couple of months said, we just wish that you guys were highly trained. And I thought, wow, if you only knew how much training we actually do. And in our use of force training, all of it, we talk about de-escalation techniques. We talk about de-escalation strategies. We talk about buying more time.
And that happened way before May 25th.
Absolutely. Again, so I think, you know, I think there's a general misunderstanding out there on how complex, difficult, and fluid this job is and the things that we respond to. But one of the things, again, that we train our officers to do, to answer the core or the root of your question here, is we train them to think. That's the most important thing that I can do as a leader, is train them to think. And yes, sometimes you have to make split-second decisions, but we train for that. We train, and again...
So that it becomes instinctive to make the right decision when you're not really thinking.
And that they've hopefully thought these things through in a training environment, beforehand. So when they're out there on the street, they can apply that.
Can you give me some examples of what is going to happen or needs to happen that is the boots on the ground, not just talking points, but things, action?
So you're getting to the heart issue here, which is where we need to get to. Before George Floyd, I had actually sent out a video to the department, and it was really surrounding around COVID. And the last thing I said to them in that video is, there's a lot of people hurting out here with you know, business closures and the stay-at-home order. I said, I need you guys to go out there and police with your hearts. And recently in another video, right, I said, I'm asking you guys to double down on our core values and go out there and police with your hearts. If we do that, we can affect change. And it starts with every contact. Every contact that we have with public is an opportunity to change the negative narrative that's out there right now. We should look at that as an opportunity. Nobody should leave a traffic stop wondering, why was I just pulled over? What was the reason for that? Or what was the justification for the citation or not? We've got to take the extra minute and the extra time to explain to people why we're having contact with them. And it's the adage of, you know, 5 years from now, people are going to forget what you said. People are going to forget what you did, but they're not going to forget how you made them feel. And so we're purposely having discussions right now internally as an organization of, you know, every contact counts, and every contact that we have is an opportunity to show our professionalism and our respect and compassion for this community, and we're striving towards that.
Do you hold your breath and think and pray, I pray that it doesn't happen?
I absolutely pray every day that it doesn't happen. And my job as a leader is to do absolutely everything I possibly can to ensure that it doesn't. And providing, and it starts, like I said, it starts with hiring good people. Yeah. Hiring people of character and integrity first. The second pillar is providing good supervision. Making sure that the cops out there have good supervisors working alongside them, giving them guidance on how to respond. Third is policy, right? Policy guides our actions out on the street. Fourth is training. And we've made a significant investment in our officers and training for the city. And we're going to continue to do that to provide the best and highest possible level of training. And then fifth is discipline. You hold your officers accountable when mistakes are made. And we're going to learn from our mistakes. And again, I go back to, we're human beings, and therefore we don't always get it right. We do make mistakes sometimes.
What about some of the things that have been said that have come out of protests and riots, inciting violence toward law enforcement officers?
Yeah, it's disappointing, obviously. Again, I think we strive. I'm very proud of this organization. I'm very proud of this community as well. And let's start there, perhaps. I think, you know, much like the strength of the police department, the strength of this community is the people that make up this community. And I've seen a lot of good from this community. I've seen a lot of support, and I'm very thankful for that. And so my message to the community is thank you for the support that you've shown to the Rochester Police Department. My message to the protesters and the people holding rallies is I hear you and I understand, and we are going to continuously strive to do better and come forward with meaningful solutions on how we can provide better safety and public safety for the community.
Being at that protest that was here in Rochester, You weren't just providing security. You were there, you were hearing what was going on. What was your takeaway from that? Because it wasn't just protesters angry, it was protesters saying, here's what we want.
Yeah. So the last several months has really been a time of reflection and asking questions. And at the outset of this, I started asking myself, how could the outcome to this incident have been different, right? And could it happen here? And do my officers understand my expectations of them? In essence, who are we as a police department? What do we value? And the more I unpack that, and there's a lot there, the more I unpack that, the more it became clear of who we are as the Rochester Police Department and what we value. We took on, we put together a task force several months ago to really define our core values, to define who we are as a police department. We rewrote our vision statement, and our vision statement is we, the Rochester Police Department, are endeavoring to become the premier law enforcement agency in the state of Minnesota, reflective of and responsive to the community we serve. Let me address those points, because there is a lot there, and this is why that's so powerful. Is being a premier law enforcement agency, does that mean we're always going to get it right? No. We are going to make mistakes, again, because we're human. But what it means is that we are dedicated to continuous improvement, dedicated to providing excellent and superior service for this community, and dedicated to learning and progressing forward as an agency. Being reflective of and responsive to the community, reflective of. We've significantly changed our hiring practices. We've completely revamped our hiring practice to be more character-based hiring. As a chief, I've had the opportunity to hire 2 recruit classes, and we're making job offers right now in a 3rd recruit class. The first 2 recruit classes, 40% of the hires that I've done are 40% women and people of color. This next recruit class, the numbers are going to be better there. That's a reflection of a couple of things. First of all, making that a priority, being purposeful about it, and being prideful in celebrating the diversity of the organization. Celebrating the fact that we speak 17 different languages within our law enforcement agency. The fact that we can communicate, and language is really that first step in communicating with a wide variety of the public. And so, and being responsive too. Being responsive to the community that we serve means finding those creative, innovative ways of providing public safety that which would discourage the traditional pathway to incarceration. That's what our police-assisted recovery program is about. That's what our Lights On program is about. In partnering, in kind of breaking down some of those barriers with some of the marginalized communities that we serve here in the city of Rochester. And so, as we progress forward where we're headed, right, and that's great that we've all done that. And let me caveat that with, there is still, that we've taken tremendous amount of steps, and although it's difficult to recognize right now, law enforcement has been making progress. And we have a long road to go. And these are steps in a long journey in front of us. And this is where we're headed as an agency. How do we come together? How do we reimagine where we're going as a law enforcement agency in providing policing services to this community? In essence, are we involved in the right calls for service? Are we responding? How do we creatively do that? Our embedded social worker program is a prime example of how we are kind of re-envisioning, reimagining how we respond to calls for service. There's been a 5-year uptick in crisis calls for service within this community, to the point of just under 1,600 mental crisis calls for service last year in Olmsted County. The fact that we have an embedded social worker with both Rochester Police Department and Olmsted County Sheriff's Department is a statewide best practice, and is really an example of the kind of that innovative policing as we move forward. And we're in the process of having discussions of how we can expand that program moving forward.